Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this special edition of Justinian Talks. We're actually here today with friends from, well, all over the globe. We have Phil joining in from his lovely home in Thailand, and then Kevin is joining us from the ground from, well, the most important state right now in the U.S., Georgia. And then we have Nicola and I, who are going to be here just to lead the conversation. So, Kevin, Phil, how's it going, guys? How are you doing?
I mean, I'm doing extremely well. This is Kevin, and I'm, just thriving here in Georgia right now. It's 7 a.m. in Savannah. The sun's coming out. It's going to be probably a warm day, but I think it's a new dawn in every sense for the state. And yeah, just so excited about where we're heading. So excited for the fact that this is a new era of Georgian empowerment, right? I mean, this is something that should have happened so long ago. And we're finally realizing what real voter enfranchisement and voter empowerment looks like here in the great state of Georgia. So,
yeah, and hey guys, thanks for having me again. I'm Phil. This is my fourth time
Yes.
on the show, I think. Thanks for having less bad guys win, which is always a plus. And I'm also happy to see conservatives just try to cope with this. So I'm going to try to give you guys this sneering internet hot take.
So I feel like we should probably ask, what's the status situation on the ground? What's happening?
right. So I've spent a great deal of time canvassing in the lead up to this runoff election here in Georgia, in Savannah, my hometown. This is where I grew up. This is my neighborhood. My family lives just outside the city, and it's been really exciting. I think what was most cool for me is that as weary as people were of the endless numbers of volunteers and calls and texts and postcards that they were inundated with, reminding them to vote, begging them to vote, people responded, right? A lot of people I spoke to were still enthusiastic. They had said they had voted already. And it was just a really neat experience. I think if there's a silver lining to this pandemic, it's that voting options had been expanded and that had been made a lot more accessible. I also think it was really sobering because even with these expanded options, the nature of voting was also revealed to be still so inaccessible, right? So many people still work so much, and particularly in the economic crisis we're facing, are struggling to make ends meet right now. So for a lot of folks as well, even though going to the polls may have been not as much of an immediate economic necessity when you're trying to make your rent and pay for food and pay for other mounting costs, people still made that effort. I think they realized we had to play the long game, even if they're in a crisis in the moment. So it was really inspiring, but it was also for me a really important reminder that we have a lot of work to do when it comes to empowering people here in the state to vote and empowering people to vote free of so many barriers, right? I think we're just so used to elections being so difficult to access, particularly for working class people and for people of color and for people who don't have, Anglo names. So yeah, it was a really, really eye-opening experience. I'm glad I had the chance just to volunteer a little bit. I would say that the mood here in Savannah is celebratory. Savannah is traditionally a progressive-leaning city. We are the city that started Georgia. Savannah is the last of the original 13 colonies that founded the United States. And what I think is so neat is that this moment also feels like a validation of our earliest legacy. Savannah was founded by General James Oglethorpe as a way to empower poor people. He saw that there were so many people languishing in debtors' prisons in the United Kingdom, and he wanted to create a place where people could come and work off their debts and be empowered and realize, economic self-determination. And the colony started off with good intentions. There was no slavery allowed. It was the first colony to accept Jewish folks, or one of the first colonies to be, you know, more inclusive to Jewish immigrants because they needed them during a malaria pandemic. And this Jewish physician came from Spain, and they welcomed them in, which is why we have the United States, I believe, third oldest synagogue. And we negotiated for the land with the local Muskogee people. So unfortunately, we deviated quite a bit from that kind of lofty aim early on in our history. Shortly thereafter, voting to allow slavery, which then kind of incorporated us into this, you know, horrific slave economy and cotton growing economy. But I think that's why, however, this moment in which, you know, poor people and people of color were the ones who came through for this election, it seems like really, I don't know, this does seem like a form of a really validating 360, particularly given that so much of this effort was also driven by Stacey Abrams, who not only narrowly, quote unquote, lost her governor's campaign in Georgia, which is a whole other conversation because there was a lot of controversy involved in that. But part of the reason why she was lampooned by the conservative press, unfairly in my opinion, is that she had debt, you know, and that she was a Black woman, and that, you know, she didn't come from the established kind of, you know, political aristocracy in Georgia. So after she lost the election, she'd already founded Fair Fight, which is an organization designed to kind of address these controversies. But then she also founded the New Georgia Project thereafter to register young Georgians and Black Georgians and other Georgians of color. And those years of work by Stacey Abrams and other activists are absolutely, you know, showing fruit right now. And I think that that's it. Yeah.
Okay. I want to remind our audience that on this episode we have two historians, one lawyer, one law student, and one political science student. So it might be a long one.
No,
I know. So I'm also like in the Southern tradition of talking way too long, so just cut me off.
No, I appreciate that. I haven't heard the name Oglethorpe since I was high school history.
Right. Yeah.
It was a good reminder.
Right.
No,
it seems like a return to our earliest mission. So that's, for me, is really cool.
And for me, who it's like, I think I know a lot about U.S. history, especially like, or like some early one and then even the newer one. But this is really good to hear, and I'm sure whoever's listening to this will appreciate it. But like for those that are listening, and especially like from those from Macedonia that are listening, like as of right now, we have there were two elections for the Senate, the runoff elections that happened yesterday. As of right now, we have the Reverend Warnock, who beat the incumbent Kelly Loeffler.
A true, like, miserable human being, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, just like a Wall Street, like everything bad about American capitalism.
Yes, and then no. I mean, I do not see her as anything more than what you just said. And then in the other election, which is much closer, I would say, John Ossoff is leading against the incumbent David Perdue. So we'll see. There's probably going to be a recount there because of the 0.5% threshold that needs to be had in order for an election to be called, I would in Georgia. But yeah, this means that if everything stays the way it is, and I don't see any reason why that would change, this means that the Democrats will finally overturn the Senate, which has been in Mitch McConnell's control since 2014. And one of the reasons why exactly, Phil. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this is to talk about how Mitch McConnell is not going to be the Senate Majority Leader anymore, which is so exciting. But yeah, let's
and
talk
I think that
about,
like on the basis of
No, go for it, and then we can move.
Okay, yeah, and I think that like adding on to that on the basis of just like the fact that this subverts so much the narrative about the South and about Georgia, right? They're the real and immediate political dynamics that are going to change in the U.S. federal government. But there's also this idea that like the South is, you know, condemned to always be a bastion of white supremacy and a Republican stronghold. And Georgia is on track to elect not only a Black preacher who is preaching in Martin Luther King's church and is descendant of African-American chattel slaves in Georgia, but also a Jewish man, right? In the state where Leo Frank, a Jewish man, was lynched in 1915, right? In my college town. So it's just like this massive subversion of the narrative that we've been telling ourselves about the South, that there's, you know, there's really no saving it. We have to concentrate on other parts of the United States. Like, no, like Georgia is a place where progressive politics can not only win, but can do miraculous things and can really mobilize people. Well, I think that's so exciting in the long term. So
I think that's I don't think that's a productive view that a lot of like, this is more like liberal elites. Like I'm from DC and I hear talk a lot about not just people from the South, but people from the Midwest too. Right. I hear a lot of people say like, oh, that's just like, they basically talk about that part of the country like Trump used word shithole countries, right? They're like, oh,
derisively,
those
flyover
places,
country.
Yeah, there's like, oh, it's a bunch of backwards rednecks or flyover country, as you said. And like, is there a strong history of that there? Yes, it's not unique to that part of the country, but like you can't, to say that is so like polarizing for your, and it's like counterproductive for your own political goals, supposedly. Unless you want to just have brunch with all your from the Northeast forever.
Exactly. And that's part of the reason why, as a Georgian and as a Southerner, I was attracted to studying the Balkans, because I think there's just such broad parallels between the you know, experience of Georgia and the experience of South and the experience of Macedonia and the experience of the Balkans, right? I mean, both regions suffer from a viewpoint of adjacent regions that see them as backwards, that see them as like, you know, that can have really derisive viewpoints towards the potential of the region. And both regions also suffer from like identity politics and intercommunal relations that can be really tense and that can be counterproductive to progress towards empowering people. And I think that this example in Georgia shows that no, like there can be amazing cooperative action. And if you empower people to be accessible to political institutions and political processes, you can achieve amazing results. That is the narrative. And I think that you're so right. This is why this is so exciting, not only for Georgia and America, but for so many other parts of the world.
Yeah. And it's also like, it's a way to have a greater sense of accountability for Democrats. It's no mystery about my political views. I'm pretty far left. But I'm also not like as pure of a leftist as I used to be, where like I don't like I think there is value in trying to move the Democrats and their constituency more to the left. I don't think there's any traction to be had to just be like, oh, you believe in electoral politics, so you're not really a leftist. It's like, no, like now we have a chance. Like if everything goes smoothly and there's no shenanigans and who knows what things might happen, but like if there is a majority in both the House and in the Senate, we can actually, this is a big opportunity for the left and even to a lesser extent for progressives to push forth, you know, a more working class or oriented agenda. Whereas, you know, basically since the Obama years, Mitch McConnell has been pretty good at blocking even just having a vote on some mildly progressive or socially democratic laws being passed. Now, like if he's gone, that's a huge opportunity, and it would be foolish to ignore it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, it is important to add that, like, this doesn't mean that the Democrats can do whatever they want, but because it's going to be, like, it's 50-50. It's like some of these, like, red state Democrats who are a lot more conservative than, let's just say, Ossoff or Warnock are, but, like, they have been there for years and will vote with the Republicans more often than not. So I think it's not going to be a given that, oh, Democrats can do whatever they want. but definitely I see your point, Phil, is like it can help to move them more to the left. It can help them to, it can help if there has like, I mean, they can finally vote on something. It's like there's not going to be Mitch McConnell who's going to block a vote on anything, even though it's probably not gonna pass, or like it's not gonna pass enough to become something else than just a vote. It's still gonna be something like important. I wanted to start it though. What do you guys think was the most crucial thing that led to this victory now? Because like if we look at the results in November, there has been a lot more people that went out and voted. And I mean, if you ask me, I would say Bernie Sanders and that progressive shift or like push for the $2,000 check for doing a lot more than just like what was the notion or like the campaign of Biden, where we see that, I mean, both Ossoff and Warnock did overperform Biden from November. So what do you guys think was the key factor that Democrats actually won this time? And it wasn't it wasn't as it was in November, let's just say.
I don't think it was necessarily one factor that the Democrats did. I think it was more of like how the Republicans just completely are in disarray right now, not only over the pandemic, but over the election disputes. And I think people are just kind of seeing like the mask is like continually slipping off. Not that it was ever firmly placed on. But like, I just think kind of seeing this, like, oh, they can't even get us some material relief for the first time in 6 months. Like, oh, these guys got to go. Like, I don't really think it's necessarily because like people are super excited about Democrats, just in the same way that the reason why Biden won the presidency, there's probably about 20 people that are actually like, yay, Biden. Like most people are like, oh, we have to at least stop this like kleptocracy from like, you know, moving at like warp speed. Let's slow it down a little bit. And I think that's ultimately what pushed it.
I agree. I think that it was multi-causal. Absolutely. It's also hard to argue with an option of vote for this person and don't get $2,000, vote for that person and get $2,000, right? And also, I think it was interesting in that the Republicans, so I've been here in Georgia and I've been inundated not only with Democratic political messaging, but also Republican political messaging. And I believe at last count, Republicans were outspending Democrats on political campaign advertising by like 400%. I'll have to check the Fox News article I saw, but it was a large figure. And so much of the messaging was just ridiculous fear mongering. I literally got a leaflet in the campaign in my mailbox that said, "Socialist Schumer wants to take away your hamburger. Vote to save America from the socialists." You know?
Well, that's so hilarious that Chuck Schumer is a socialist. Like,
right. It's honestly very condescending and insulting that you think that these like idiotic fear mongering scare tactics will work. Unfortunately, I'm sure that there are folks who have been now so conditioned by conspiracy theory that those messages might actually strike home. But I think the most important factor I can identify, at least here in coastal Georgia, is the fact that I think Democrats have begun to maybe seriously center the efforts of local people, local like activists and like Black people and Black women working to register people to vote. I think that people here in Georgia know what Georgians need and they know what Georgians will respond to. They know who has not been registered to vote. They know who have been disenfranchised for generations, and they're the ones who know what needs to be done. I think that they just need to be empowered. They're the ones who need to be funded. They're the ones who need to receive the platform attention, you know, and I think that that has been the key critical factor here, right? Since Election Day on November 3rd, 118,000 people early voted in this runoff that did not vote on November 3rd. And another 40,000 people were registered to vote for the first time. And I think that's because we were actually centering and empowering local activists on the ground, especially African Americans and African American women who have been doing this work for years, but they've just been ignored, right? And that was kind of an issue. Right, and suppressed, absolutely, both of them, right? And I think that, like, unfortunately, the Democratic Party, just as much as the Republican Party, suffers from an issue of like gatekeeping and these power hierarchies that continue to privilege the most economically successful and empowered people, right? That's why you have these dynasties of families who kind of are, maintain this rotating cast of characters when we are looking at leadership for the party and different nominations for political positions. I think the time has come to really drive home like working class people and working class needs. Sorry, that's my alarm. But working class people and working class needs are what we need to be focused on when it comes to, okay, how are we going to win the state and mobilize people to vote, galvanize folks to go to the polls, right? I think that has been the central message. We Georgians know what we need, particularly the folks who come from the most marginalized communities. They know what they need. And if we empower African-American people, if we empower people of color, if we empower working class people to do the work and we support them, then we are going to see more success like this. I think that is the big takeaway.
Yeah, I think if you would have asked me back in October or November or even last month, like, are we going to be able to hold the Democrats accountable? I would have been like, no, like that's, like you're giving the keys to the king and then asking them to do your bidding. It's, like,
right.
If I'm not saying that like it's all doom and gloom, I'm just saying don't get your hopes up. Like, look who got elected president, Joe Biden.
Right.
He's not exactly a champion of the people, especially for minorities and marginalized groups. But now this having 2 out of 3 branches of the government, I am like cautiously optimistic that there will be some slight shifts to more working class and progressive oriented reforms. We're not going to see that natty care for all in the next 4 years. That's not going to happen.
Right. But I think this race has demonstrated that those policies gain real traction and people are actually going to respond, right? Like that, those are effective strategies. People deride AOC left and right for being way too radical and too extreme. And it's like, no, like these are things people will respond to. Particularly, it literally took a pandemic for us to be honest about the fact about how many people are not only suffering now and suffering severe deprivation, but have been for a long time.
And precariousness too. I would say that it just reinforced what was already kind of shown to a lesser extent in the presidential election, how like all the Democrats, including all the way up to Biden, said the whole reason why we lost in some of these congressional seats is because you guys were running around screaming about universal health care and defund the police. And like a bunch of the more progressive wings were like, yeah, but we won those elections.
Right.
And the argument the other side of the coin is, well, those people were running in more conservative the progressives were running in districts where it was pretty much a shoo-in.
Right.
So
I think that's why, I think that's why it's so important, though, to empower working class and African-American people, because the issue then with this power hierarchy and you have these elites maintaining control of the Democratic Party is that they are so out of touch with working class needs and the needs of people of color and indigenous people and marginalized people that they don't even know the potential of what folks will respond to and what they need and how they can salvage the future of the Democratic Party to be a viable, popular party going into the future. So.
Well, it's because they think that their success lies in pulling centrists and moderate Republicans to their side. But you're never going to shake those people out of the Republican Party for one reason. It's taxes, mostly. Like most of the people that I know that aren't like, stop the steal, Trump is the best, drain the swamp kind of people, like most of the Republicans that I know, when it comes down to it, they don't want to pay their taxes. That's like that's anecdotal, whether it's taxes on their 401k or or taxes on their above ground pool.
Along with this and kind of like what Kevin said about the messaging of the Republicans, I would just add that like I mean, you've probably seen it, but like Lindsey Graham like speech of how like you should vote for the Republicans because I'm going to be the budget committee chairman and not Bernie. I mean, that's like the biggest endorsement you can give
Right.
for people to go and
Right.
vote Democratic in these elections,
Lindsey
right?
Graham is
Right.
so confused. He's such a confused man. Like
Right.
in
Right.
so many
Right.
ways, I think.
Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
he was like so anti-Trump, and then like as soon as Trump came into power, he's simping for him. He loves that
Right.
guy.
Plus, like, how sad is it is that your main selling point is that you are not somebody else. Like, that's just like really depressing and bleak. And I would hope that you bring a little more to the table, but the reality is I was honest.
The Democrats are pretty good at that too, though.
Yeah, the Democrats did that back in 2016. But like, what I want to talk about now a little bit is like, how do you guys see the Senate changing, especially in the shadow of Mitch McConnell's legacy as a majority leader?
Good question. Good question. Is Bernie gonna like rise to the top and be super influential?
He's gonna be like the AOC of the Senate.
I mean, I think he has been saying, and I mean, this might be the deal that Bernie has made with Biden when he decided to kind of like step out. It was like, you just give me like, the budget. I mean, let's make me a budget committee chairman, and I think he's also going to be like infrastructure, agriculture. No, I don't know what I know. There's another one, but like
healthcare, like health and human services.
Healthcare, pensions, something.
But I think this is it for Bernie. Like, he has lived to come to this moment, and I do believe this is the opportunity. Now, would Democrats allow him to be as influential as he can be, or they'll just, play nice for a little bit and then push him to the side again? I think that's the question.
I'm inclined to think the latter.
Believe that.
I'm inclined to think the second situation is more likely. I think that's exactly what happened in the lead up to the 2016 presidential primary in the Democratic Party. We saw the emails of Debbie Wasserman Schultz like being very complicit and shunting him aside, in favor of a dynastic choice. So I think that unfortunately this is why there's an issue with elite kind of hegemonic control and entrenched control of the Democratic Party. Until you have a massive power restructure, you're really not going to see much change. It's going to be like Democrats struggling to learn the same lesson over and over again.
I'm I agree with that. I think I'm not super optimistic that you're going to see a huge progressive influx of people on committees, because who is there in the Senate who's progressive? Bernie.
And Markey too.
And Markey's less progressive though, and Elizabeth Warren, it's
yeah, maybe with Griswold.
Who's running policy. The Senate? Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, corporate Democrats. And that's it. I think what people should focus on, what I think needs to be done, and I said it before in this show, is use this opportunity to build a base. Take a lesson from the right wing. The right wing's very good at this. I'm not saying that this is not an endorsement of them. I just have to be careful because when you say stuff like this, it's like, oh, he's endorsing. It's like, no, look at their tactics. The right wing is very good at building a populist base. I mean, where does it come from? Conspiracy theories, white supremacy, all that stuff. All that stuff is obviously garbage. But can the left do the same thing with the Democrats? Can they build a working class base? I think there are small embers of this, but it is not nearly as well constructed as the Trump base is. Why is that? Well, it takes a lot of footwork, and I think starting with canvassing is good. It's great. It's more than I've done. I also think kind of organizing workers. I think what you saw earlier this week with Google was actually I was surprised, pleasantly so, that a bunch of Google workers have unionized, one of the biggest corporations in the world.
I think that's also I feel Yeah. Also, I feel like another front. I think we talked with Phil, with you after this, after we got the news in. Just like leftists need to come out of their like little social media bubbles that they have,
Yeah.
because the right wingers always do that. They infiltrate even leftist spaces and take people away from them. So
I know.
that
Way to
I
capture
think that's
Parlor.
also a big front.
We need to
Yeah.
capture Parlor.
That's the
Yeah, because
first
Twitter's
step.
just like
First
Twitter's
Georgia,
like-
then Parlor.
Twitter, Twitter's just like Tim Pool and like teenagers who like Stalin for some reason. Like, you know, that's like, you know, most
It's-
of the yeah.
I think what I want to focus on next, which I wasn't planning on talking about this, but since we started talking, and like, what do you guys think? Talking about building the progressive, building the leftist, movement, or the people, especially in Congress, and not just Senate, but speaking about the House too. But like, what's your take on just Nancy Pelosi being able to, without any problems, still keep the speakership over the House? And I mean, AOCs and the squads. Not, I mean, we can't say what's happened there, like, because like maybe they have some backroom deals, because like we don't know what's going on there. But like, it looks like from this perspective, they gave up too easily and without any fight. I mean, I don't think there is a person who would have taken over the House in place of Nancy Pelosi, but I feel like they just voted for her without any fuss about it. Because if we remember, the first thing AOC did when she came into the House was staging that protest in front of Nancy Pelosi's office, which kind of led to the Green New Deal and the passing of the resolution of the Green New Deal. Now it was like it looks like they caved in a little bit. Now again, we don't know what happened in the back room, when they were figuring these things out. I don't believe that they have, sold out or whatever. Like, I still believe in the squad and AOC and all the other ones. But like, what do you guys think that will have an impact on how people, and like, because I mean, people voted them in because of the, making that noise, so because of putting those issues on the table, and now it feels like they kind of, did cave in to Nancy Pelosi.
I think expecting them to kind of have a radical, like expecting a handful of congresswomen to take over the House and to sway it in such a way is, I think that's just a little bit pie in the sky. I don't mean to sound like a corporate Democrat there, but like I think going through this electoral process, which they've gone through and have done amazing work and have really given voice to issues that really were considered radical just 5 years ago. I think that's amazing, but like going to Congress, that's a cage you put yourself in. That's a concession, right? And working with this system that's there is going to yield just what you see. And I don't think it means that they've sold out. I don't think it means that they are somehow less representative of their people. I think, when you're playing the politics game, it's a game of chess. And like you said, we don't know what was said behind closed doors. But I mean, I'm not entirely surprised by that. I didn't have a whole lot of stock that Nancy Pelosi would be taken down.
Yeah.
Like, I think like the Jimmy Dore take on it is just like, so like, that's not strategic thinking, I think.
I'm inclined to agree with Phil. I think that Nancy Pelosi has had to operate in a certain like realpolitik approach for a long time now. And, I think she has also been someone who's kind of espoused that narrative of we can't go too extreme. We have Democrats and more fragile, constituencies, and they are, more at risk of, drawing the ire of conservatives in their districts that might then result in the loss of Democratic seats. And she's had to do, kind of some House of Cards-esque wheeling and dealing just to maintain kind of effective control and efficient processes. And I think that's why she's kind of had these public spats with the squad, and some of the more very progressive elements of the party. So I don't imagine we are going to see a marked and distinct change coming from her immediately. However, I think that the Georgia election is very instructive, right? And I hope that she and other Democratic leaders can move beyond doing things like silly optics. For instance, like when they were, took their pictures kneeling with the kente cloth stoles. It's just
cringe.
And that, if anything, just served to emphasize how disconnected folks really, really are, which only, entrenched elite control that we really have to address. Like, that's just a reform that's desperately needed. But I hope that she takes this to heart.
I just think it exposes the limitation of this type of electoral politics. Like, there's your limit for how it is right now. Now we need to do what's impossible in this system, right? To paraphrase Zizek, like, you have to move past that, and what I think moving past is organizing labor, building a base. How to do it, I don't know. I'm just prescribing the problem.
And Pelosi's also shrewd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She knows that there might be a right-wing reaction once there's like a Democratic executive and there's a Democratic Congress in place, right? I mean, I also think that a great deal of Trump's victory was just a deep-rooted and racist reaction to 8 years of Obama, right? And then white America was so threatened by that. I do believe that was an element, right, of this kind of right-wing populist response that helped, usher Trump into power. And I think Nancy's shrewd. I think she knows that we're unfortunately going to have to anticipate a little bit of that. And it's going to be important to be strategic, about how are we going to address that challenge when it comes. So, but yeah, sorry, Nicola, what were we going to say?
Yeah, you also talking about aesthetics and optics. I feel like the left needs to focus a little bit more on its optics and how they present themselves, especially aesthetics, because you cannot have a bubble of Marxist.org websites that promote leftism. And the Democrats need to understand that optics does not equal material influence and consequences in reality. Yeah.
Right. Which is why I think I've heard so many people saying, yes, let's celebrate Stacey Abrams, but let's not tokenize her, right? Let's not take this one, special Black woman activist and then put her on, a ceremonial position, or take only her and put her somewhere and then think that we're done, right? No, she needs to be the start of systemic fundamental change and who we are putting in positions of power and who we are bringing up and allowing to lead the party. I totally agree. I think, unfortunately, optics are often the way to obfuscate and to distract from real systemic change.
Oh, SAT word, I like it.
So yeah, no, I totally agree, Nicola. And I think that is going to be the challenge, right? Because that's always the first immediate reaction, just to pluck a few people, right? And to have them kind of centered as, okay, look, check the mark, we did it.
That's exactly
we've
what
changed.
Biden did.
Yeah,
cabinet,
exactly.
BT dubs.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, some people say that played into picking Kamala Harris as a VP presidential candidate. It's interesting, and it's an unfortunate and cyclical part of the challenge of trying to inculcate real change into our political processes and our political organizations. Right, you're always going to have that kind of run around that you're going to have to name and address and be no, we're not going to do that. We're not just going to allow ourselves to be distracted by cults of personality and then lose sight of real change. So,
well, yeah, and I think that's why there needs to constantly be this friction or dialectic between the electoral nature of politics and the organizational, the grassroots, the like the populism, the base, all
Right.
of those things need to be working in tandem. They work great with the Republicans.
Right.
Let's see if the Democrats can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, we could definitely go on and talk about a lot more stuff. I think I want to wrap it up with the question. It's like, apart from just enjoying how, seeing how sore losers are Republicans right now, and it's just like, I literally took a screenshot of Trump's Twitter earlier today. This morning, it was one election fraud disputed, the little things on Twitter after another, which is like, as much as fun as that is, I do believe it is really dangerous.
It is.
So what do you guys make of just the inability to accept defeat for this big base that Trump has, and how would that reflect on Biden's presidency, on the next few months at least, or this next year, and then kind of end the conversation here. So Phil, Kevin, what do you guys think?
I think it's a cult.
Mm-hmm.
That's like my very short answer. I think that despite all of the evidence that shows that the election was not stolen, all of the court cases that got thrown out by Trump appointed justices, despite the fact that all of these states banded together under, I think there was a Texas attorney general, I think, or some state official from Texas, who also kind of coincidentally was facing some corruption charges, so he's trying to get a pardon, it seems. Despite all of that, if you talk to your real fervent Trump supporter, they'll say, nope, the election was stolen. I can't help you. That's my thing. You're just so you exist in this world, and until you decide to even entertain taking the blinders off, I think you've just been occultized, if that's a word. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it, except what's it going to take for you to accept his loss? I feel like there's going to be an Avignon presidency or something. There's going to be the president in DC and the president in Florida.
Yeah. And I think that it also highlights just how much the United States is still struggling with white supremacy, because so many Republicans don't see themselves as merely losing these specific political elections. They see themselves as fighting for civilization, right? Pence literally said, the future of the republic is at stake. You know what I mean? Which is just, it's not only theatrical and very dramatic, but it kind of serves to continue to fearmonger this unfortunate and racist impulse in white America.
Western values.
Right, exactly. Right. Every successive government has been the most diverse racially, ethnically, gender-wise in history. And I think we can't return to how we used to cooperate and reach across the aisle in the old days, because in the old days, both parties and both centers of control were both very, very white and very, very male, right? And so we can't return to this fantasy of cooperative action and bipartisan efforts, because in that instance, it was still just an old boys club, an old white boys club, right? And I believe that's so much of what facilitated that cooperative action in the past, right? And I think that now people are being forced to seriously engage in power sharing with people that they have been conditioned since birth or an other and are threatening for whatever reason, right? And that is what is going to have to be addressed, or else the Republican Party is going to continue to engage in these really dangerous and bad precedent-setting tactics, which are going to destabilize and which are going to threaten the future of our country to operate and be stable. It's really scary. And I think that, the whole narrative of, well, let's just give Trump some more time, let's just humor him a little bit. No, this sets, a real dangerous trajectory. The Democrats are lucky that they have the numbers to thankfully ward off any serious attempts to subvert the Constitution. But I mean, I think that is what the MO of the folks who are at the center of the struggle. They are seriously trying to save white civilization in America, and they are willing to do anything that they have to do to ensure that outcome. regardless of how realistic it is, or die in glory, So I think that is what is being highlighted here. And I agree with everything that Phil said as well. So it's an important lesson, and I hope it's one that a lot of people take seriously. So yeah, we'll see. But I think that though this moment in Georgia, to end on a note of positivity, is one that I remain so excited about. And it was such a cooperative effort from so many people of so many backgrounds. It was led by women of color and Black women and working class people, but they garnered the support of so many other folks in Georgia who believe in that vision, including me. So I'm looking forward to hopefully us having a brighter and more prosperous and more inclusive future. So yeah, thanks again for having me, y'all. This has been really
exciting. Just one more question before we wrap up. And I want wrong answers only. What happens to Rudy Giuliani?
What happens to Rudy Giuliani? He will. He's going to be appointed Secretary of Transportation and kick Mayor Pete out. That's what's going to
happen. I don't know. I think we should send him back to Italy. I think he's done his time, but Italy is no longer accepting refugees, so who knows? That might not even work for him. But
send him to Venezuela so he can dig up the information about how Chavez somehow from the grave influenced this election.
He'd make a great TV court judge.
I just like, part of me just like to end on a humorous note is like, when I'm seeing this, yes, I'm scared because it sets a very dangerous threat to democracy. And the democracy in the United States has been undermined for decades now. It's just, but it's again, the mask is greased up and slipping off a little bit faster. But like, it is also super amusing to see how guys like Giuliani and Bill Barr are like, yeah, I totally stole the election, and then when they actually have to go in front of a judge, they're like, oh yeah, we don't we can't say with any definitive evidence of election fraud, because they know if they do that, they're perjuring themselves. I mean, they're not total idiots. And so it's like, it is kind of funny to see them like hem and haw just to get points from Donald.
Plus, it's also like not too late for a career change, and I think Giuliani has a great future in landscaping and gardening.
But not hair or men.
Right. Right. Now, the Four Seasons total landscaping tradition of gardening.
Can you imagine the Giuliani Marital Aid lineup?
Oh man, I don't even want to think about it.
The fact that he also received a special COVID treatment just infuriates me so much.
Yeah, we didn't hear much about him. Like, we heard that he got it, and then he got like a special treatment of
the monoclonal treatment that's like incredibly exorbitantly expensive and available to a small few on the entire planet after denying the dangerousness of the pandemic.
He actually just got blood from babies, from newborn babies, that was just directly injected into his veins and into his brain.
Right.
That's what happened.
Right.
Just kidding.
But it highlights too, like, just how much work we have to do, and also correcting on like so many other levels, right? I think like news organizations in our media ecosystem also has a lot of reckoning to do, because there's a lot of work to be done to making sure people have access to factual, information. I had a dentist appointment yesterday, and one of the hygienists told me that half the staff plan on not taking the vaccine because they're believing in conspiracy theories, right? So I mean, the work that needs to be done needs to take place in so many different sectors on so many different levels. But just to return to what's happening this morning, what I'm hopefully is going to be confirmed this afternoon here in Georgia, I think there's a lot of promise, and I think that we should remain hopeful, and we should remain like very, very vigilant, because I think that we can realize a new era if we're willing to work for it. So
I'm just gonna have a peek to see if anything's changed real fast, if y'all have a few minutes.
And I mean,
and also like we should be eating only peach flavored things for the next month.
I really would like what's it called? I forgot the name. Cobbler. I haven't had that in forever.
Peach cobbler. Oh, delicious.
I mean, I live in Thailand. They don't really like baked goods are not really part of the standard cuisine here.
I believe peaches originated in China, though, so you might have easier access to them, the original source.
Oh man, I gotta get some peaches. I can probably get some, but they're mad expensive.
Do they grow in Macedonia? Do we know?
Yeah,
because they should.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some few cities, especially that have really good peaches. So, but no.
Okay, well, I want University Goethe Delchev to plant one on its campus, as well as University of Metodi.
We'll send you like compote. Big leaf compost and just go with it.
You know what? We're gonna drop some merch soon, so we can figure some peach merch in there as well for our Georgian friends.
That's a good idea.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
But yeah, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it this morning, and then I relieved my initial feelings with you guys. It's really good. I mean, we all politically hate Mitch McConnell. It's so good to probably not have him anymore as the supreme leader of the United States political system.
Legitimately one of the most repugnant politicians in modern American history.
Yeah, so cheers. Yeah, cheers to that. And Phil, I gotta ask you, you did it for Trump. I think it's fair to do it for Mitch McConnell to do one buy a loser. So we can end with your message.
Do you want the Trump or
no, Mitch McConnell. We need one for Mitch McConnell.
Oh God. All right, hold on a second. Hold on, let me mute myself and practice it real fast. Hold on. All right, here we go. We will do everything in the Senate to ensure that I say bye, loser. I don't know. Like that's like more of a Nixon. I don't know. Like I don't really do McConnell. He's like,
yeah, it's still
bye, loser.
You need more of a Southern accent.
Yeah. Somebody like I don't know. Like just to end it on a shock jock note. Like somebody has like. People have had sex with Mitch McConnell. I just want Kevin cuts out. I just there. Okay.
Okay. Let's keep it PG-13. All right.
Oh, sorry.
No, but thank you guys so much. I know, Kevin, you're up all night. It's morning there now. Phil, you too. Well, it's a different time of the day for you, Phil, and for us it's afternoon. So thank you all so much, and let's talk soon again on another episode. And you guys should come back to Macedonia at some point this year, so let's make that
absolutely happen. Yes.
I'd love to. And after the pandemic, you guys should come to Thailand. It's a beautiful place. It's got the best fruit. It doesn't have the best peaches. It has the best pineapple though I've ever had right here.
Yes. No, Blagodaram, y'all. I can't wait to go back to Silbo's and introduce them to Peach Burek. We're going to make this happen.
Peach Burek. That actually sounds really yummy.